Hey everyone, it's Endymion, and oh boy do we have a doozy of a video today. Before I get into my coverage of Sweet Baby Inc. in this video, I want to quickly go over how recent events surrounding my integrity has turned into a win overnight. In case you don't know, CD Projekt Red CEO called me a liar and said that my information about his company being buried in DEI policies was a lie. I released a video prior to this one that you're watching now, disproving all of his claims and instead showing how he was the liar instead. When he called me out, my post that he retweeted got community noted for disinformation. It has since been removed after the internet has realized that I was in fact not lying at all, and he was. Meaning, I've officially beaten the false claims against me and won this fight against CD Projekt Red and their moronic yes men who gobble up the CEO's words like it's their own religion. Let me be clear, I do not hate CDPR, I don't want you to boycott them, and I don't hate the devs there, even though quite a few of them, you know who you are, came to your CEO's defense and tried to disprove me as well. Now, you all look incredibly stupid. Also, there are several websites that made articles about this story that are now officially fake news, and I want to publicly call them all out. First is GameRanks. You lied about me, you didn't do your research whatsoever. I want your article to be edited to make it clear that your claims against me were false. Secondly is Games Radar. Same thing, you will edit your article to show the new information provided to prove that you as well falsely reported something as fact. Thirdly is thegamer.com, who didn't publicly state my name but regardless covered that story anyways. Edit your article to confirm that you were wrong about me as well. DualShockers also lied in their article, and I want their article to be changed too. MSN as well sent out Games Radar's article on their website, and I want that fixed too. Let it be publicly known that I, EndymionTv, face the wrath of CD Projekt Red and its developers alongside its thousands of yes men, and I not only proved them all wrong, but I came out the other side better for it. I exposed you all for the liars you are, and I hope there will be a community note on your CEO's post before long about me too. Remember when I keep telling you guys to voice your opinions and never back down no matter how big or scary they are? This is one of those moments. I don't care how big your company is, I'm going to roundhouse kick each and every one of you in the throat with facts because my integrity is everything. I defeated the woke gaming press yet again. Thank you for supporting me. Shout out to my anonymous source that told me all of this to begin with that sparked this conversation in the first place. You were always in my corner, and you even helped me compile info against CDPR, so I thank you for that as well.
We hire based on merit and talent alone. Can we stop looking for conspiracy theories and go back to making cool stuff? And so this is in response to an Endymion post here.
In his video, Endymion criticized CD Projekt Red recruitment process, which the CEO now refutes.
He claims that DEI has nothing to do with it, right? Which is like, okay, you can go ahead and take a look at this right here. They have a list of this on their website. There we go, CD Projekt Red deep dive approach to ESG. This is uploaded on their official website as well. You can see this is their logo.
I would like to present our strategic approach to ESG issues in 2021.
And goal, and this shows like what their goals are as a company, right? Action plan to increase the share of women in the workforce, including management positions. So how is it that you can say that you're hiring and you're doing this based off of merit if you literally say that you're doing it based off of identity? I mean, it's just there, right? Like, I mean, I'm not like trying to come up with a conspiracy or something like this. I feel like it's literally just them saying it. You can't go and say you're hiring based only off of merit when you have internship programs that discriminate against men, and you also have stated goals that are uploaded by the official company YouTube account that explicitly say that you want to hire based off of demographics and identity. They're fucking lying.
We are winning, friends. Now, let's move on to Sweet Baby because there's a lot more to talk about there. You all know who Sweet Baby Inc. is. I don't need to explain who they are to you, but what's wild is that recently their CEO held a TED-like talk at the XOXO festival and it was laughably bad. So I figured I would walk you through why it's terrible and why she's lying to you. I also want to look into their website, which has gotten completely changed, which enforces another claim I was told by sources, and then we'll just kind of wrap this all up in a nice little bow. Cool? Alright, so Kim Belair, Sweet Bing Bong Baby, decided it was a good idea to stand up on stage for 20 minutes in order to own the chuds, or whatever it is they think they're accomplishing, I guess. She spends the first few minutes of this talk trying to get sympathy from the audience. She even shows her dogs and cats, which immediately made me go, oof, cause did you know it was reported that the least happy group of people in modern society are actually single, childless women in their late 30s and early 40s? Don't shoot the messenger, alright? I'm just telling you what's been researched is all. But yeah, I mean, if the shoe fits, I guess wear it. Before I show you this first clip, back in March 2024, Kotaku's Alyssa Mercanti wrote an article about Sweet Baby Inc. called Sweet Baby Inc. doesn't do what some gamers think it does. At one point in the article, Alyssa Mercanti places an excerpt where Kim Belair, who was interviewed by her, says this in the article. Sweet Baby is, at its core, a narrative development company. That means anything from script writing to narrative design to narrative direction to story reviews. One of the things that we do offer is cultural consultations or authenticity consultations. For us, that generally means that we might be asked to look at a story if there's a character in it who is marginalized in a certain way, and the studio wants us to connect them with a consultant who can bring a little bit of authenticity. But the perspective is never that we're coming in and injecting diversity. For the most part, it's the reverse. It's that a company has created a character and they want to make that character more representative and more interesting. So Sweet Baby Inc. doesn't inject diversity into game stories. That's what Kim Belair said back in March 2024. Now during this talk she held recently, here's what Kim Belair says around the 3.5 minute mark, so please watch.
As you might imagine, a lot of game teams were looking for guidance both in terms of narrative, but also in terms of learning how to tell diverse stories and feature diverse characters. And so naturally, because we were kind of in that conversation, we helped them. Throughout the years, again, we worked on, as I said, a ton of games. For most of these, we did writing, story development. Sometimes we just kind of came on and did spot checks. But the thing that genuinely made me really, really proud of all of us was that we were living up to the title that I had wanted to. We were becoming true narrative developers, capable of taking on pretty much any task as far as it touched story on any project at any time, and that expertise was a result of all the different kinds of work that we were doing. For those not in the industry or not familiar with it, most game writers in their entire careers will see 5 to 10 projects as just, a lifetime. And we would see that many projects in a matter of months. And what happens when you work on that many projects and you get to see the inside of so many processes is that you don't learn necessarily like, oh, here are the ins and outs of working in this specific company. You instead hyper-focus on narrative and all of its parts. And you get really good at it. You get really, really specific at it, and you become craftspeople. And funnily enough, as far as this company is concerned, that was actually my end game.
So Kim Belair admits that SBI's goal was to work on the narratives of these games and, by her own words, help massage and inject diversity into these stories that otherwise didn't already have them. So you're saying one thing, Kim Belair, but you contradict your own words in your little not-so TED Talk you just held. And the fact that Alyssa Mercanti left that excerpt in her piece is baffling because it not only makes SBI look bad, but it also leaves some stinky doo-doo on Kotaku's face. But at this point, Kotaku getting pink eye from their own farts, it's commonplace for them, so who are we kidding, really? Next, there was this part I found interesting in Kim's talk, so please watch.
And if I'm being honest, just as a creative myself, that's all I've really ever wanted. I've never wanted to be known by audiences, really. I have never wanted to be known by gamers, certainly. And I've wanted to be... I have wanted to be known by game devs and writers especially. I want teams and studios and writers and creatives to think of us when they need a hand, when they want that more support. I want to be a game dev's game dev, and that's where I hoped it would be, but that is not what happened.
So she didn't want to be known by gamers because this is how these grifters work, of course. The idea here is that they get to pervert and ruin your favorite games without actually being known, so you can't accuse them of this. It's like those annoying enemies in a video game, like remember the knights who were trying to snipe you in Anor Londo in Dark Souls? And you gotta keep running, and if they hit you once, you plummet to your death, and that part of the game has notoriously killed so many players because those damn archers are annoying as hell? That's Sweet Baby Inc. They're those archers, because they want to attack you from afar and dampen your progress, and ensure that you lose what you worked hard for, but they also don't want you to know where they come from or who they are specifically either. It's sort of like when the Wizard of Oz is unmasked finally, his power was in his anonymity and his ability to sell this larger-than-life persona than he really was, That's Kim Belair. She's annoyed and frustrated because people are quickly discovering that the Emperor absolutely has no clothes, no armor, or any real semblance of what a good story even is in a video game. This leads to this next part where Kim tries to use two games specifically to prove Sweet Baby does good work, so let's watch that part next.
On October 23rd, there was Spider-Man 2, and then on October 27th, there was Alan Wake 2, both big AAA games, and we had worked on narrative and character for both of them with literally years of work on Spider-Man 2, and we would finally get to announce them. We were very excited. In retrospect, we were actually like comically excited because we had a couple thousand followers at the time, mostly game devs, and we were like, okay, it's time to stand up and be proud of our work. Wow. This is gonna be really nice. And I remember even thinking that morning as we made these posts, like, I wonder if anyone's gonna notice that, like, we posted about Spider-Man, we're also posting about Alan Wake. Like, will anyone put it together? Because I think our way of working at Sweet Baby, the kind of like teamwork that we do on so many different games, is really, really unique. I think it's really cool. I think people will be excited about it and about our craft. So I decided to do a cheeky Google and see, like, hey, had anyone put that together? The Google went bad. I shouldn't have done it because rather than any praise or people going, wow, how did you do it? Or just, hey, a narrative development company, what does that mean? I'm really interested. We were instead found by kind of 4chan and the worst people on Twitter.
So she admits in this part that Sweet Baby Inc. worked on both the story and characters of not only Spider-Man 2, but Alan Wake 2 as well. Very, very interesting. Why this is so, because also in Alyssa Mercanti's Kotaku article, she referenced another developer during this named Kyle Rowley. He is the director of Alan Wake 2. Alyssa said in her article again, and walk with me guys, I'm going to prove to you that they're full of doo-doo in their diapers, let's keep it at it, but here's what Alyssa said in her piece. According to the loudest members of the Sweet Baby Inc. detected Discord, the company is directly responsible for those failures. Not the studios that employed them in the first place because of the content Sweet Baby allegedly forces into games. She then shows a tweet from Kyle Rowley where he denounces that Saga Anderson was made only black because of Sweet Baby's involvement, which he denies. However, this is a lie on his part, and I will prove to you that not only is Kyle Rowley of Remedy a liar, but so is Kim Belair of Sweet Baby. In the GameDeveloper.com article titled Why Remedy Entertainment Went All In on Saga Anderson and Alan Wake 2, Kyle Rowley and Sam Lake of Remedy publicly admitted that Saga Anderson was deliberately influenced directly by Kim Belair. In the Finding Saga Anderson part of the article it says, for creating Saga Anderson, the developers at Remedy took a different approach compared to the process behind other hero characters, resulting in a more organic creative collaboration across different disciplines at Remedy Entertainment and outside parties. Along with working with story and narrative consultant Kim Belair of Sweet Baby Inc. to refine the character voice and story arc, the key creatives of Alan Wake 2 also worked extensively with the actress playing Saga Anderson, Melanie Libbard, who offered suggestions and other insights that led to the Saga Anderson scene in the final game. I think that it took us a long time to find Saga, said Rowley on the character. It was an interesting process. We had an idea in our head on what that character could be, but then as the character evolves over time, being open to changing her based on input from the actors and from external sources, he means Kim Belair, really opened things up for us. I think that's important for us as a studio to be okay with because we don't do it very often for our characters, no kidding. This idea of how to create a new hero character, so it is kind of a big moment for us, and it was definitely interesting for me going through that process. When it came to making Saga Anderson, it was about ensuring that one of the leads, a person of color who is core to the story, had a clear role that complements Alan's side, but also works independently as its own experience. So this interview directly contradicts not only what Alyssa Mercanti reported, but it also exposes Kyle Rowley of Remedy for lying about changing Saga into a black woman over her original white woman design. And the fact that they so openly admit that Kim Belair, who just told you that she worked on the story and characters of both Spider-Man and Alan Wake 2, proves this as well. These are snake oil salesmen trying to lie in your face and corrupt the very things you love and transforming them into other things. It could be one thing to race swap a character, but it's objectively true as well that both of these games, which I have played to completion, and I 100%ed each of them as I have both platinum trophies, I can attest that both games are severely worse than their previous installments. Alan Wake 2 was not a hit, it was a commercial failure that has still not been able to recoup its costs. It's also a game that champions its connection to Sweet Baby Inc., which absolutely had a hand in destroying that game's story and making it worse with their involvement. The game is called Alan Wake 2, has a white guy on the cover, yet it stars a black woman instead for about 60% of the game, give or take. It's a classic bait and switch, and the game's story and characters are complete and utter nonsense. It was, by far, the worst game I played in 2023, and there's really no competition. However, in Spider-Man 2's case, every character feels neutered and sterilized of any edges. We also know that Peter Parker, a straight white male, is weakened on purpose to make way for Mary Jane, a woman, and Miles Morales, a black and Hispanic other Spider guy, whose name is totally Spider-Man, even though Insomniac literally named his solo game Spider-Man Miles Morales. No, come on, he's Spider-Man, guys, trust me. That's why we had to put his full legal name on the game's cover, so you wouldn't confuse it with the actual Spider-Man instead. Spidey 2's story is terrible. It offers us arguably the worst version of Venom ever in terms of his story and character arc, because Harry Osborn in this version as Venom is awful, and he is not interesting nor menacing at all. Everything about that game's story was just dog water, and it doesn't surprise me to hear that Kim Belair openly admitted that she had a direct hand in its story when there's sections of the game where you play as characters like Haley, a deaf girl, in a game called Spider-Man, or when Insomniac locks the camera so you can't move so Miles has to watch two schoolboys confess their love to each other. These moments are displayed like they were designed to be put in future PowerPoint presentations when talking about ESG. They don't feel organic, and they come across as weird and alienating instead. Objectively, every game Sweet Baby has worked on has either caused fans to revolt or made sequels that weren't as openly embraced by the fans. Critics, of course, love these games because they are one big smelly echo chamber that huffs each other's feet stink and farts so they can keep staying in the club. But saying that Spider-Man 2 is better than Spider-Man 2018, especially in character and story, that's ridiculous. You have brain damage if you think that. If anyone tells you that Spider-Man 2 is better than Spidey 1, or that Alan Wake 2 is better than the original Alan Wake, or that God of War Ragnarok is better than God of War 2018, like I said, dude, you have some kind of brain damage of some varying degree. Like, there ain't no way. All of these games, which were worked on by Sweet Baby, have worse stories, questionable character arcs that feel completely out of place, or random shoehorned in diversity characters for checklisting reasons like Haley in Spider-Man, or Saga, who was deliberately changed because of Kim Belair's involvement, or Angerboda, randomly being black in a game that is full of Nordic white people, and an angry Greek guy with an axe, I guess, too. Case in point, this woman is lying through her teeth with every passing second this video continues to expose her, but it keeps going.
Actually, we weren't a narrative development company. We were a DEI company, some kind of vaguely defined like censor, and that we were here to use all of the power we had amassed to force companies to go woke. And obviously that's a very baffling like understanding of what work for hire is. I'm not sure how they imagined we did it or how the contracts would be drawn up for it, but it kind of didn't matter because it just kept evolving and spinning out of control, and suddenly the conspiracy was just alive.
Yeah, Kim, you just ousted yourselves again. You guys have ruined video games and you're playing the victim like always. And of course, Kim Belair even says at one point that they were not responsible for Saga Anderson being turned black, like listen here.
Literally within a few hours of me seeing that first post, we were not only being accused of, forcing a black person into Alan Wake, which one is cool, but we didn't do.
Yeah, I already disproved that, but it's hilarious seeing them lie like this anyway. Of course, they also call anyone who's against them as far-right supremacists. Watch that part here.
In moments when this movement couldn't dig up like another reason to attack us, they would just kind of move on to other groups who they perceived to be like us. All while, doing the work of erasing all of those people's and our actual jobs and interest and papering over it with kind of, that rallying cry of far-right supremacy, DEI.
Ah yes, the convenient all-in-one label that anyone who opposes you is evil, yet all we want is good games. Remind me how many Western games have actually done well this year compared to Eastern ones? Without Asian-made games, 2024 would be a desolate wasteland of nothingness, and proved if anything that the gaming industry can thrive without a healthy Western presence in the market, and frankly, outside of a rare good game from the West, like Space Marine 2 or Helldivers 2 in its peak popularity, largely speaking, Western games have been underperforming or downright bombing this year. But if you ask me, the only diversity I care about in my games is my weaponry and abilities that I get to use when I crush my enemies' skulls in. The diversity of skin color or gender means nothing to me because 9 times out of 10, it's just disingenuous and simply pushed so some HR person can put a clip of that game in a PowerPoint presentation in order to gain more funding from some DEI group. She also says at one point, which I'll show in a second here, that representation is innovation, and that said representation can make things darker and edgier. Here's that part.
At the core of my approach here, and the approach that we take as a company, I genuinely believe that representation is not censorship, it is innovation. Diversity in narrative makes things more intense. It can make it more visceral and more real. It doesn't have to always make something more wholesome or softer. I really do believe that by opening up to new perspectives, by getting folks in the room, we actually push more boundaries and we get more real. But what happens when you get harassed is it doesn't matter what you believe.
But this isn't true in any way either, because every game I've played that had SBI involved, it was the exact opposite. Every story and character felt more sanitized, weaker, and less interesting once they got involved. A great example of this is God of War with Kratos compared to the 2018 Kratos when SBI wasn't involved, to Ragnarok where they obviously were. The character in general just felt less like Kratos and more just like a white guy trying to wash away his white guilt at the best of times. She keeps saying things, but nothing she says has results that back these claims in any meaningful way. I understand that Kim Belair is a human being like any of us, but it's very obvious the games her and her team have worked on have objectively been made worse with their direct involvement. Just wondering how much more nonsense are we going to be seeing in the future with their names attached to it. Or maybe not attached at all, considering their website has actually been scrubbed of a ton of information regarding their involvement with video games entirely. If you go on their site now, any mention of partners they've worked with or the games they have consulted on are mysteriously gone.
Assumptions and lies about who we are, what we do, and what we want. We have worked on 80 games, as I've said before.
This reinforces what I said during my Ubisoft Assassin's Creed Shadows coverage there, where I was told by a very reputable source, the same one that told me things like Yasuke was inspired by Black Lives Matter and Assassin's Creed Hexy or Hex is a lesbian power fantasy, that a lot of these companies are going to start hiding their involvement with anything players dislike. And they are going to start promoting their games as being based and normal but will be full of DEI and identity politics once players actually buy and play the games themselves. Case in point, a lot of the problems we have with games these days are not going to be fixed. And largely speaking, the issues we have and talk about are falling on the deaf ears of executives who are being told by their activist underlings that it's just white noise and will blow over, but we know it won't. This disingenuous tactic will backfire spectacularly on them, and we will find out if your game is attached to Sweet Baby Inc. You can bet on it. And to be honest, with whichever game dev or publisher that is watching this video right now, if your game gets discovered to have a connection to Sweet Baby Inc., and we find out that you went out of your way to lie about it in order to avoid backlash, your studio will be lambasted and your games will be ruined by the internet at large, trust me. Plus, it isn't hard to realize SBI is involved with your game in the first place, considering if your characters suddenly don't feel like they were in a previous game, or diversity that makes no sense starts showing up like Anger Boda, or we start noticing the male characters are being sidelined for female ones, there's a really good chance that we can and will discover your connection to this cancerous consulting team. Human beings have the ability to notice patterns by recognizing them in the real world. Don't think for a second that your company or studio will be the first ones to pull the wool over players' eyes. We will discover it, and when we do, you'll wish you never aligned yourselves with them in the first place. As of the making of this video, they have placed some games they worked on their website still, puzzling however that the site says they've worked on 30 games so far, when in that XOXO festival that we've been seeing right now, Kim Belair confirms that there's been well over 80 games already released with their direct involvement. So this site is even lying to you and underselling itself on purpose. Everything about this company and what they do is a red flag. There is no positive outcome that can come from aligning yourselves with such a ridiculously bad consulting firm that has ruined franchises and will continue to keep doing so on purpose. But as for the companies they worked with, those names have all been scrubbed from the website completely. Even though we will always have the receipts. For example, here's a picture of some of the places they worked with already. It makes sense to want to distance yourself considering Square Enix earlier did the same thing, being the first company to remove itself from the site's list of publishers. And of course, there was that one investor on Twitter who was Japanese showing concern for Square Enix having any tie to Sweet Baby that made waves as well. And it's great to keep seeing developers sticking up for players and telling these freaks to back off, like Thomas Mahler did recently, who works at Moon Studios and rejected Alyssa Mercanti, and told another dev named Ray that I knew personally to denounce their involvement with Moon Studios publicly to avoid backlash. That other named developer is Tim Soret, whose studio is making the game The Last Night. He publicly came out and stated on Twitter that he agrees with Thomas Mahler and believes we need to push back against these weirdos at every turn. Here's what Tim Soret, founder of the game dev studio Odd Tales, had to say via Twitter. Perfect reply from legendary co-founder of Moon Studios to the worst kind of journalist. Compared to music or cinema, games journalism tends to be extremely hostile towards its creators, stemming from a fundamental misunderstanding of the nature of the creative process. It's beautiful to see more game devs stick it to Kotaku personally, and the nonsense in general that is plaguing their industry. Video games are being hijacked by activist brain-rotted weirdos who care not for your hobby, but only want to use it to promote and push their insane agendas down all of your throats. They will gaslight you into thinking that you're a bigot for refusing, but I implore you to keep letting your nuts hang and telling these freaks to back off. There's nothing these people bring to the table that is actually needed in gaming. Players are not against diversity. They are, however, against forced agendas and deliberate smear campaigns against the paying customer. It's like the CD Projekt Red CEO thing where I kind of lit the internet on fire recently. These people will lie to you and gaslight you into believing what you're seeing is fake, when all you need to do is go on their own websites and use their own words to prove them wrong. All in all, the industry is in a bad place. There's a lot of bloat, rot, and deceiving lies masquerading as truths. These publications, nor these industry grifters, will tell you the truth, because if they did, they would be out of a job. And that's why I'm here, and I thank you every day for standing up for me, whether it's on Twitter, YouTube, or whatever else. And for anyone else that ever comes against me and tries to denounce my integrity, I want you to know this from the bottom of my heart. I will come down on you, like the goddamn fist of God himself, if you try to denounce me. I will destroy you, and that is my promise. I will win this. I'm proof that you can stand up to bullies and knock them down. Thank you for watching. Subscribe. Thanks to my members and patrons. Have a wonderful day, and I'll see you soon.